The Lionsgate is a portal date that has been celebrated for years and years and years. Actually, it's pretty ancient. But there is also some misconceptions and some misinformation that people like to speak about it. So I'm just gonna let you know like what I've kind of figured out with my research so that you may have the most clearest and most comprehensive understanding on what the Lionsgate portal date is and what it isn't. So that's my main goal with this, and also I want to of course assist you with working with these energies in these next few days, since that is the main time frame for this alignment here, and you will understand more as I go. Ever since people started to talk about this fairly recently, I noticed something that was a little bit incohesive with these talks, because people kept saying that it was the sun and the earth being aligned with Sirius, and it was very confusing because there was a lot of talk about alignment. But when I had already done a little micro reading on my Facebook page about Sirius being conjunct the Sun on the 7th of July in the sign of Cancer by Western astrology measures, this is where I felt conflicted, because the Sun had already been astrologically conjunct Sirius previously, and then people said that okay, here's an alignment to Sun and the Earth on the Lionsgate, when in reality what's actually happening is that the Sirius, star of Sirius, is becoming visible between the 6th and 13th August, waking up from her winter sleep, basically. This is called the heliacal rising, and the official date for this is August 11th in 2021, so this might be different for different dates. And this was also considered the Egyptian New Year, as per the Egyptian solar deity Ra was waking up from his sleep in the Egyptian mythology. So this is what's actually like astronomically happening. So this is more based on science maybe, and the measurements with the heliacal rising. So this would kind of be the rising sign of Sirius, if that makes any sense. We might as well pull up a chart, like an astrological chart on when Sirius is actually on the rising sign. The Lionsgate was celebrated as back in the day the Earth and the pyramids of Giza aligned to Orion's belt. But as some of you may already know, there is this thing called precession of the equinoxes. So this is what has then caused this alignment of the pyramids of Giza to align to, or like the Earth to align to Orion's foot, and same with the Sun. And the aspects that is made here is sextile and trine, connecting to the fixed star Rigel, which is shown in the chart as well. So because people don't explain what they mean by alignment, they might be giving out faulty information. They may not be explaining it as deeply as they could. So therefore, we don't necessarily have an astrological alignment to Orion's belt, but we do have an alignment to Rigel in Orion's foot. So that's the other backing here. Now, when it comes to the lion symbolism, why are we talking about the Lionsgate? Well, of course, this is Sun in Leo in the Western astrology, and it's in its domicile. So this is one of the biggest things that is said about this. This is the middle of Leo season, so we're talking about the middle of the sun just enjoying themselves in its home sign, technically, so in its most radiant placement. Then of course there is the Egyptian Sphinx, which are of course also connected to the pyramids of the Giza and such. So of course there's a lot of Egyptian symbolism here as well. And the Egyptian New Year, that's another thing that I haven't said yet, but yeah, that's also the thing. They do consider it the Egyptian New Year, even Atlantean and Syrian New Year, since those are also connected to this time. But mostly when it comes to the lion symbolism, this is focused around, again, the Sphinx, as well as Sun being in Leo in its domicile. And I find that we will do our best work when we express ourselves and work on our vitality, core energy, and spiritual sovereignty. And when we get very creative with our stuff. So this can be very good for manifesting. I'm going to talk about the magic in a little bit, but first what I want to say is this light that is coming from the sun, and of course Sirius is very radiant for the next couple of weeks, and the planet Earth in astrology is always in the opposite sign of the sun, so here it is in Aquarius, and it is aligned to the common good. So this means grounding into the collective needs, and how can we shine so bright that we can expand beyond our own doorsteps. So this is not by any means getting so personal and so self-absorbed that we forget the common good and the sort of collective needs and bigger scale things, because Jupiter is also in Aquarius, same with Saturn, so we do have some planetary activation in Saturn as well at this time. So when it comes to that, what we want to think about is, how does our benefit create more beauty and radiance on a bigger scale? What makes our soul shine through us? And how can it serve the collective? So again, think bigger and be willing to break the molds. And I'm saying this because Uranus is also square this new moon and the sun, of course, being the main character here. We're talking mostly about the sun. But we want to definitely make sure that we are thinking bigger and again breaking any molds with anything that has come in the older paradigm, in the older earth. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the astrology of this time and the lion symbolism here. And when it comes to Sirius, this is a beautiful star to be working with. And while a lot of people will say that this is a star of wealth and fame and so on, I would suggest getting deeply in touch with what you want and what those things mean to you, and addressing any distortions around that, because I feel like a lot of us want to be wealthy and famous because it makes us seem like nice people in the eyes of society, but I would never recommend people do things for that reason only. Because that's a distortion. That's you trying to fit into another person's mold. That is not your light and your heart shining brightly. So again, focus on your higher self desires. And again, the infinite multiverse here expanding within you and expressing itself through you, because there are no limitations to what we can do, really. It just has to come through the heart and through real empathy and caring, and not through the eyes of the current society or how we may perceive the current society, or even how the society might push itself onto us. So remember, that's almost like symbiosis of how we can, of course, help others with these radiant shifts within. And this is timeless work, of course, and ancient wisdom, infinite multiverse. So we're not just talking about one-time events, even though we do celebrate this every year, and that's the thing, it comes every year. And again, it's more like a portal, so it's not just this one date here. And Syrians do work with many different layers of human consciousness, and they're very good with astral work. So the spiritual research and alchemy is a big thing here for the work with humans, and the time and space in dimensions is where many of us will find revelations, and I find that revelation work is especially supported here. We might experience timeline jumps and quantum leaps as well. So this is definitely a portal that is focused on like how time works. I find that many of us are going to find many revelations into that, and the sort of time and space and how that relates to the different dimensions is something that will bring even more revelations, because if we are to go into some very basic dimensional scale vibes, we might think of, for example, the 3D as a linear timeline, which again, the majority of the world is already in 5D. Like, this whole thing to go from 3D to 5D is again old paradigm. This is where we are playing small and we are not being current. We are living in the old. if we are to say that the world is in 3D. And again, when it comes to 5D consciousness of time, there is more timelessness there. Around 4D is where cyclical time exists. So that is where we might then go into timeline loops, for example. That's something that might happen there. But 5D is where we start to experience timelessness and we meet the higher self. The dimensions even higher is where the time-space is very different. This is something where the time-space expresses itself. It's almost like it expresses itself through you. And time is not relevant at that point. It's like very quantum, very 0 point, very close to that infinity. Because when we talk about infinity, there is just this light expanding. It's really hard to even explain, but you might get an idea through this transmission onto what that means when you receive the energy and when you accept it and when you let it go work to you. Please do not get so caught up in the chase of wealth and fame. I know a lot of these articles like to say that this is just all about money and fame, but it doesn't have to be, and you always have to know what you're gonna do with that and how it's going to help you to be that person, that expression of the source that is ultimately working towards a brighter future and a brighter present. There has to be some depth in that, right? We don't really want to do this for like egotistical reasons or as like miracle solutions, because as with anything, you do have to put action behind your energy. And while miracles, yes, they do happen, they are real, we do want to make sure that our energy is fully aligned and that we are ready to take on anything that we are creating. So that's something to think about. The same as with any astrological energy, we do have to work with the energy. So just be mindful of what you're creating and work from the heart. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up as well. I'll see you soon. Bye.